Well, one thing is, I tend to, at least, and I know that you guys do too, we tend to get along with the attorneys on the other side better than you'd expect. Usually you expect us just to be constantly butting heads. I know you guys alluded to it before, and there are some attorneys that, hey, you feel like you got to yell at them for them to understand anything. But the majority of them you get along with great, and that's beneficial because when you try cases against them more than once, they know who you are, then they know, how you're going to be, and they can report to their clients, hey, this guy knows what he's doing here. You might want to pay them some money than risk going to court. These guys know their case. But we tend to get along with the other side pretty well.
And I would say probably that most people that need a lawyer that have been injured in a car crash or some event that's caused by somebody else, they're telling the truth. They're legitimately hurt. But there's a perception out there with some people, and I get these questions all the time, at a dinner event or a party, people are like, is this legit? Are these people really hurt? So there's a perception that people that bring claims are just doing it because they want to win the lottery. And I would have to say that's a fallacy. That most people that contact us, they really have been wronged, they really are hurt, and they do need to be reimbursed for the expenses that have been caused by somebody else.
And the cases we don't believe in, we turn down. We don't think that person is truly hurt or we have an issue with what they're telling us. Hey, sorry, we can't be your attorney.
There's no reason for us to spend our time, effort, and resources on a case that doesn't have any merit. Not only is it a waste of our time, but financially, for the lawyer, we don't get paid unless we make a recovery. So we're not going to take on a frivolous case. That is probably the biggest impediment to lawyers taking frivolous cases, is that it's money that comes out of our pocket if we don't make a good case selection.
I would say that's especially true with the medical malpractice cases. We have a big medical malpractice practice here, and there's just this undertone in society that, frivolous lawsuits against the doctors, and it's causing them to leave the practice and not be able to get care, and it is so far from the actual truth behind it. Those are the most scrutinized cases that come in from a financial perspective because they cost the most money for us to actually litigate. And from a legal standpoint, there are systems in place where before we can even file a medical malpractice lawsuit, we have to get all of the records, we have to have them reviewed by an expert in the same specialty as the defendant, we have to get an affidavit from that expert attesting to the fact that there's been a deviation from the standard of care that caused this person to be injured. That all costs a lot of money. There's a 90-day pre-suit window where we have to exchange information with the defendant, give them all our medical records and our interrogatories. Our clients have to potentially sit for unsworn statements. There's so much before we file the lawsuit. By the time we file that lawsuit, we're on pretty good ground. And they have additional protections. If you or I or any of us are driving a car and we kill somebody as a result of blowing a red light or something, there's no limit to the amount of the damage we would have to pay to that person's family. If a doctor kills someone as a result of malpractice, if that person isn't married or doesn't have any children under 25, you cannot bring a claim against them. And nobody knows that. And it's a law that was put in place, I think, in the 70s because malpractice premiums were so high for the doctors. And there are a legion of study out there that show that even where states have modified their medical malpractice laws, it still doesn't change the fact that these premiums are still through the roof. You have these doctors who, for $250,000 in coverage, pay $100,000 a year, which is a bizarre ratio that should exist. So I think those are the areas that I think there's some misconceptions about.
And with medical malpractice, doctors get away with malpractice all the time. And a lot of times it's smaller things. So people will call us up for these smaller issues. Doctor screwed this up during surgery. He nicked this during surgery, had to go back in a week later and do another surgery. So he had to go through a second surgery. The problem is it's so expensive to bring a medical malpractice case forward that it will cost us $25,000, maybe $50,000 we have to spend to bring that case forward. If your injuries are just you had to go through a second surgery, which is a pain in the neck. Who wants to go through a second surgery sitting there? But your bills may only be $50,000 more. Well, we can't proceed with your case because the damages aren't significant enough for us to continue to go forward, because the recovery will end up putting nothing in your pocket because you have to pay the bills or pay everything else. So doctors get away with smaller malpractice all the time. And it's really frustrating because we have to turn down a ton of cases on people who are legitimately injured and there was legitimate malpractice, but it just wasn't big enough. They didn't lose a leg. They didn't lose an eye. They didn't, lose something significant. It's just a smaller thing, and it's frustrating to a lot of folks, and we have to tell them that all the time. Sorry, we can't proceed with your case because you weren't hurt bad enough by the doctor.